All right, welcome into this latest episode. I'm super stoked. I've got one of my favorite guests today, Ben Bagge, here is hanging out with me. Ben is a master in all things sales, sales processes, and I've been excited to be able to hang out with Ben not only today, but Ben's also one of our mentors in our actual cash practice as well. And Ben owns Pro Kinetixs Physical Therapy. They've got several locations at this point out in Oakland, San Diego, as well as Des Moines. And super cool. Ben's been able to scale his practice to multiple seven figures. And the cool thing is, Ben's really stepped his way out of day to day operations of the practice and still been able to keep a really, really high quality clinical product and sales process. And I'm excited to dive into that. And today, Ben also helps out with Clinical Marketer, where they're mentoring other cash practices, including our own. And we've been excited to be a part of that group, and excited to have Ben here, just sharing your insights. So Ben, thanks for jumping in, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. No, thanks for having me. And I love what you guys are doing on this side of things. And I know it's super valuable to people. And it's one of the biggest pain points and what is preventing most people from scaling and growing and scaling is what you're helping people with. So honored to be asked and be on here because I think what you're doing is awesome, Chris.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, dude, Ben, why don't you give us a little bit of like kind of high level of like where you are right now, especially in your cash practice? Because I think it's a lot of people have that desire to like, stop being in the clinic all the time. And like you're doing it at such a high level. So like kind of like describe to the folks like where you are in your practice and kind of how you manage it at this point.
Yeah, so we have three locations. Like Chris mentioned, San Diego, Oakland, and Des Moines, Iowa. And so we have, I think, across all three locations, we have 12 physical therapists and three admin, and then one full-time sales individual. And then we have clinic directors at each location. So that's kind of how our setup is. We are 100% cash-based. We don't take insurance. We don't bill any insurance. 100% cash-based on that side of things. So that's kind of the framework of it. My day to day is more so I haven't treated a patient in about 3 years now. I do miss patient care a little bit, but I realize I love the business side of things even more. And I really think that's a big reason why it's scaled to where it has so quickly because of me working myself out of patient care. And that's really the biggest bottleneck that I see most clinics being bottlenecked by growth is actually being stuck in treatment. And so it's nice to be able to really dedicate my entire day, my entire week, months, years to strictly the business aspect of things and not being bogged down by patient care. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Some people get a lot of fulfillment out of patient care. If that's what really makes you happy, then I would say encourage you to keep it in there, stay in patient care, but do know that it's going to slow down your business growth. And that might be a worthwhile trade-off for you because you enjoy the patient care side of things. So there is a trade-off and everybody has a different answer for what is most fulfilling for them and what works best for them and their family.
Yeah, I think it's so true, right? Like being able to, I think a lot of clinicians don't have the ability to choose what they want, though. They kind of just get stuck in. I think a lot of them just get stuck in. They don't know anything else to do besides treat a lot of patients, and so that's what they do. Or especially on the sales side of things, right? Like they worry that maybe that new PT that they bring on, or other practice or other provider that they bring on isn't going to be able to replicate as well as they can, right? And I know you guys are still converting at a very, very high level. So like at the base foundation though, like how did you get really good at sales, right? Because the core piece of a cash practice is you got to be really good at sales. So like how did you go about mastering the craft of sales and business ownership?
Yeah, unfortunately, the hard way, just reps, reps, reps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really what it came down to. I've done over 1,000 first phone calls, and that, in my opinion, and I think that's why it's so awesome what you're doing, Chris. I really believe that that first phone call is one of, if not the most important thing that you can master in your business. If you don't have that, it's very hard. That's just it's the lifeline of a business. You can have the best marketing, but if you can't convey the value, it's gonna be an uphill battle. And not only that, people think that they have an in-person sales conversion issue, but it's actually not. It's actually that they're not building enough value on that first phone call, and there's a lot of more selling that has to be done on that in person. I think with how you coach and teach the sales process and the front end and what you guys are doing with staffing, it really makes it so essentially it's the clinic owners or the treating PTs patient to lose. They're walking in, like with my practice, they're walking in pre-sold. They
Yeah.
you continue on. It's more so just how at what capacity are they wanting to continue on. So to answer your question, it's just mainly reps that allowed me to really master it. And but I'm so glad that I did, because that's, in my opinion, why we've been able to grow and scale to where we have, because we have that mastered.
Yeah, heck yeah. Were you still treating full time and also taking phone calls like at that point? Like, or did you step out of treatment and then you were kind of mostly doing phone calls? Like, how did you tackle that side of things?
Yeah, so I was treating, I was still treating, and while taking phone calls, and then as I brought on a physical therapist and another more team members, and I started bringing down my patient care by still taking all the 100% of the phone calls. And I did that for the first 2.5, 3 years, where I took all the phone calls, every single one. And there's a lot of people that would say that I held on to that too long, but part of me is very glad that I did, because we've
Yeah.
mastered it to a level that I don't know anybody has. And that's why we've been able to scale and grow. And I think if I would have handed that off too early, or handed it off to somebody that wasn't as proficient, we wouldn't be where we're at today. And so I'm glad I did hold that on, because that's where we're at. And then that's what, we've been able to collaborate with you on, Chris, is really mastering that and be able to help, what you're doing on the side of things too, with mastering and being at that same level that we are.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. I agree with that. I think that first phone call is such a critical piece. Like I see that with a lot of practice owners we're talking to as well, where they're just like, "Hey, I need more new patients." And yeah, certainly, especially if you're new. But when those patients are either not showing up for eval or they're dropping off a plan of care, like that's a big, big red flag for the things going on in a practice. What are some of the symptoms you typically see in practices, like a patient who isn't being effectively warmed up on the phone? What are those symptoms you typically see in the clinic at that point?
I'll talk about symptoms within our clinic, and then also the ones that we coach, is saying, "Oh, I just get lower quality leads," or "They're just bad
Yeah.
leads." They're not. Lead quality is largely dependent on the questions that you ask.
Mm,
You can
that's good.
turn a lower quality lead into a pretty solid lead by asking the right questions. And it's funny to see that, like the clients that we coach, that as time goes on, like, yeah, my leads are getting better. No, your leads are getting better. You're just getting better at asking questions, is what it comes down to. So
So good.
that's a symptom that we see with clients, with regards to the sales. Like, they just feel like they're getting poor quality leads, but it's actually just them not being proficient in sales and not asking the right questions. But within my practice, like, if we are not doing well at that first phone call, it impacts the clinic all across the board. We're not converting as much. Our average visit per plan of care is not as much, because people aren't sticking around. Our conversion rate is lower. Our back end monthly continuity is not as optimized as it normally would be, because they're not being funneled there, because we're not setting expectations on that phone call. So it impacts the entire patient journey. That first phone call, anything after that, it impacts everything. And so if you are not doing what you need to be doing on that phone call and optimizing it, it will impact the entire patient journey after that.
Yeah, that's man, so true. Yeah, people just want to use their insurance, and people don't want to pay cash, or it's the economy. Like so many people want to use those excuses, but again, a lot of it comes back to just how well are we warming these people up on the phone, and then do we have the right processes? Even in the clinic, to make sure we're having the right conversations with people. But it should be an alley oop at that point, not hey, I got to take this whole thing down the court to get there.
Exactly. Exactly. It's funny that you actually use the basketball analogy. I use that with my PTs when I'm onboarding them as well. It's like, hey, our goal is, like, when we do this first phone call, that it's gonna be a layup, an alley oop, or maybe a floater at worst. But you're not gonna
Yeah.
it's like a 3-point attempt. This is gonna be a half quarter that we're asking you to hit. Our front desk and our sales individuals do such a good job on it that, yeah, it's an alley oop, layup, and maybe a floater at worst that you got to hit.
I love that. And I like y'all's setup as well. Like despite the fact that you guys have three locations, you guys have sales internally, like it's centralized. You got one person handling all of this stuff to warm people up. And I know John does a great job with these calls as well. Like what is, how has that been integral to y'all's success as well, like as you've kind of grown and scaled at this point, to say, hey, I've got one person, he doesn't even work in the clinic, he's handling all the sales. Like how has that been impactful to the business?
It's invaluable, not just from the revenue standpoint, but my peace of mind, knowing that that is taken care of. Our most important piece of business is being taken care of allows me to sleep better at night. I don't have to do them. Now I can focus more on other things that are going to move the needle after that too. So it's been valuable, and that's why we've had the success that we've had. John's been doing, for those that don't know, John's our sales individual. He does all of our phone calls for all three locations. Actually, just recently in the last 6 months, we have another PT that's starting to take over the San Diego phone calls because we're just getting too many leads, and John can't keep up with them, which is a great problem to have. But
Good
John's been
problem to have.
there for almost 3 years now, and he has probably more reps on the phone than I do at this point. And so it's just invaluable when you can have that person step in. And it also doesn't just impact me and the business, it also impacts our admin. Like our front desk can now focus on doing what they do best, greeting patients, really providing that great patient experience when the patient walks in, making sure that patient visits are scheduled out, making sure that they're supporting the PTs as needed from an administrative standpoint. So because they're not taking the phone calls anymore and John's doing that, now it frees up their time to really make that patient experience even better versus, if we got an eval coming in, well, sorry, I wasn't able to greet them because I was on a phone call with a new patient, right? That decreases our conversion rate on
Mm.
eval because they're not having that warm intro. So it really makes a big difference by being able to have that dedicated sales person across the board.
Yeah, I think I'm sure you guys probably see this too on your side, but we see it all the time where these practices, they've got two or three, four people sometimes answering the phones on any given time frame. They've got a new patient walking in, they're trying to greet while they're also trying to close somebody on the phone. And like it's just a mess. Like I don't know how like and then they start getting turnover at the front desk because of that. It's like it's this big just like downstream effect that starts to happen because they just don't have one person that's the master of one thing. They're just jack of all trades at that point.
Master of none. Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's the worst. What do you feel like it needed to change, like, as you guys have grown and scaled, like, was there anything that you felt like you needed to change either in your processes or from a sales or mindset standpoint as you went to bring staff on? Because I think as businesses grow to scale, they have trouble getting it from the business owner's head, right, to now I've got to get this stuff out to the other people around me. So, like, as you grow and scale, like, how did you, like, get that process, not only from a sales but just process in general, over to your other like staff PTs or other front desk team? Like, how did you get that stuff out of your own head and into something that's replicatable by other business folk?
Yeah, it really comes down to setting expectations and then holding them accountable. They know what the markers are that they need to hit. You review those with them periodically to see how they're doing. And if they aren't hitting those marks, sit down with them. Hey, how can I support you? So a lot of times it's like they're not getting support that they need if they're not hitting the markers. So you ask them,
Hmm.
what support can I provide you? So again, from day one, setting expectations on what does success look like in this role, and then two, holding them accountable and tracking those metrics is the big thing. And then also just knowing that nobody's ever going to be able to do 100% view. And you're also not going to be able, if you bring on other team members, you're most likely not going to be as great as them in certain things too. And so just going in, knowing that expectation that not everybody's going to be as good as you, and then you just really need essentially 80% to allow you to replicate your time and get your time back so you can focus on other things, is going to be able to help you help more people and move that needle in your business versus being bogged down and being afraid to hand something off because you want it to be 100%.
Yeah, that's so good. I think a lot of business owners just get in their own like heads. They're just like, well, they're not doing it as good as I was, and so they're just gonna, I'll just keep doing it. I'll just keep grinding at that point, and they just get in their own way of being able to actually grow at that. You know?
And that's the thing too, is like if you're doing everything, you're even if you brought somebody on at 80%, if you continue to do everything, your business is operating at 30-40% capacity of what it technically could be if you would just give up control and hire on somebody else at 80%. Now even though that person's not performing as well as you still have the capacity to help in other ways that is going to make you optimize your business at a greater percentage than if you would if you tried to keep doing it all on your own.
That's so good. Yeah, I love your mindset around like I know you've done a ton of teaching on this as well. Just like, hey man, you got to buy back your time, and like eventually, like you finding somebody else who's going to be able to do this either better or just free up your time in such a way where you can focus on higher leverage tasks. Like, share some of your mindset around some of that and like why you think that's so important. To be able to buy back your time and find the right people to move you forward.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what do you want your business to be? A lot of people really set up the pipe dream of these lifestyle businesses where you treat 20, oh, you only have to treat 20 patients a day and you're only working 20 hours a week, and then you get to go home and do everything, and do whatever you want the rest of the hours. That's not the case. If you are all doing everything on your own, you're doing follow-ups, you're doing workshops on the weekends, weekday nights, you're doing the phone calls, you're doing the scheduling. People are texting in, they want to move their appointment, cancel, reschedule. You're doing all that on top of patient care. So I think that is something that I wish I would have known going into starting my practice. I think is falsely advertised that this
So true.
lifestyle business, there's nothing lifestyle about it. It was the most stressful point in my life, and that was where it was a breaking point that I realized, hey, I needed to start hiring. I need some help here. And it also comes down to you just can, if you're only you and you don't give control, you are being selfish, in my opinion. And because
Mm,
there's now you're not able to help as many people that you otherwise would if you would give up some control and get over the
mm.
ego aspect of it. We helped last year, we helped over 1,500 people. If
That's
it was just,
crazy.
it was just me, it would have been like 5% of that, right? So 95% of the patients that got help last year would not have if I wouldn't have given up control, right? So that's the thing too, is you also owe it to your community. If that's what you want your business to be, to grow and scale, you owe it to your community to be able to help those people by giving up control and increasing your capacity. And it also comes down to what you want for your lifestyle. Personally, like I want to eventually have kids and family, and I don't want to be treating patients, for the next 35, 40 years. I want to have time freedom. And so that's another important thing to me too, is getting my time back so I can focus on other things outside of work.
Yeah, that's huge. I think I love that mindset of like, man, you guys impacted a crazy ton more patients than if it was just you in the business. And I think a lot of people don't have that mindset when they're going in. That you're right, they have that lifestyle business mentality, which is honestly it's super stressful. I think that I agree with you. I think it is the most stressful time when it's just you in your practice trying to figure out how to get patients in the door and you're just running around ragged and you're like, I need some freaking help.
Yeah, 100%. Like that was easily the most challenging part of my business journey, was trying to do everything on my own.
What is there anything that's been a mindset shift for you or a paradigm shift for you over the last several years as you've kind of transitioned more into just like leading your team well? Has there been anything that's like what's been probably the biggest like paradigm shift for you in your own mind, if any?
Yeah, really, I'm kind of in a shift right now, currently. So it went from, me treating patients, making sure to take care of patients. Now brought on staff. Now I need to make sure that I can take care of my staff. Right now, my customer is actually my staff. If I take care of
Mm,
my staff, now they'll take care of the patients. So my role is not actually making sure patients are taken care of. It's actually my staff being taken care of. And then if I take care of my staff correctly and put them in a position to be successful and systems to be successful, they'll take care of the patients. But now we're at the point of scale where I can't support every single team member. So now we have clinic directors. So now my role is actually not supporting, it will be a little bit still supporting the all the team members, but now more of my focus making sure that the clinic directors are being supported. So now the team members underneath them are being supported, who will then support the patients, right? So in kind of a shift where more of my priority is making sure that the clinic directors are supported, and giving them an environment to be successful. I still check in with the team members, but
sure.
offloading some of those responsibilities to the clinic directors. So I'm not doing all one-on-ones with all, I think we got 17 employees right now. It's just not
Dang.
possible to do one-on-ones at this capacity anymore. I'm actually doing a disservice by trying to do it. So now I'm trying to outsource that a little bit and put other people in positions to provide that support.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Being able to, you know, get the right person to handle these conversations at that point and you leveraging higher end task in the business. I think that's huge. What well, dude, Ben, I always love diving into these things, and I appreciate your time on this today. What's one final like piece of advice you would have for somebody as they are maybe they're in that stuck point in their business where they've been seeing a bunch of patients and they're kind of at this crossroads and unsure of where to go, whether they hire or whether they just stay in this kind of lifestyle hobby kind of business in the grind. Like what's some big advice that you would give for them as we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, I think nothing changed if nothing changes. If you have to ask yourself, like, if I continue to be in the same position, can I sustain this for the next 5, 10 plus years? Like that's what it comes down to. And most of the people that are in that lifestyle business, it's not something that is sustainable for 5 or 10 years. And maybe it's sustainable, but not enjoyable. Right. And so
Mm,
just know that something has to change. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of stuck in the same position. And I know it's scary. to hire or outsource, and you got to give up control. But at the end of the day, we've helped over 100 different clinic owners at this point, and across the board. And this was the case for me too. The biggest positive shift in my business and personal life was when I hired that first admin and first physical therapist. And it was also the most scary and most challenging. And so a lot of good things are on the other side of fear, and you just have to rip the band-aid off and know that there's been hundreds of other clinic owners that have gone through this and made this choice and been happy about the choice. It's not going to be any different for you.
Oh, that's
So
so good. I love that. Well, Ben, how do we find out more about you guys and what you're doing over at Clinical Marketer? And if anybody wants to check out your socials and those kind of things, what's the best place for them to reach out?
yeah, absolutely. You can visit us at clinicalmarketer.com. You can also, we have a free Facebook group. We have over, I think, 4,000, 3,500, 4,000 people in this free group, tons of free resources. It's a good place to get started. And so you can check us out there. You can also find me on Instagram, Dr. Ben Bagge, Bagge, and follow me there. And I try and provide as much value and lessons I'm learning within my business and pass those down to you guys so you guys don't have to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Yeah, y'all's Facebook group is loaded with value. So definitely check that out. We'll put some free resources in here, link the Facebook group. And as always, Ben, thanks for jumping in with us, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one last thing, want to just give a shout out to you, Chris, and everybody that's listening to. Like, you guys are like, we just talked about how important the sales aspect of things is, and Chris is an expert at that, and can help offload that for you guys too. So definitely check out his stuff and explore that as an option, because like I said, it's the most one of, if not the most important things, and you want to make sure you're getting the right help and not going about it on your own.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I appreciate that insight as well.
Absolutely. No, thanks again, Chris.
Later, man.